And, you know, there's this big push now in Florida. We heard, who was it that was saying on television? We had
Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz was saying that we should have the AG of Florida look into the fact that Bloomberg gave, what was it, $32 million to an organization, nonprofit organization that was pre-existing, for them to distribute nonprofit. Imagine they have a nonpartisan status to distribute money to ex-convicts who have fines or fees that would prevent them from being eligible to vote. They've been paying those off. And Matt Gaetz went on and said, we need to investigate Bloomberg for bribery, which is, of course, absurd. Who would ever do that? Well, it turns out it's the AG of Florida is actually launching an investigation into Bloomberg. I have a feeling Bloomberg's not too worried. I suspect that he's got probably a bigger legal team than the
state of Florida.
Yeah, honestly, I bet you he does. Yeah. Now, let me be very clear. That's a problem. We can put up that. Do we have a tweet on that or no? Here it is. Here is from Fox and Friends. And, you know, when it's on Fox and Friends, you know that's a theme that's going to happen throughout the day, right? But here it is on Fox and Friends. The Florida Attorney General accuses Michael Bloomberg of breaking election law. Now, we know that the Republicans have already sunk the Federal Elections Commission. There is no functioning Federal Elections Commission right now because they basically got the Republican appointees to resign, and there's no quorum. So it's just not functioning right now. But here's the Florida Attorney General. I'd like to see her, what she's going to do about it.
There are a number of felons, and apparently, I don't know where the number 16 million came up, but he now is offering to pay the fines, the restitution, etc. You think that could violate election law, and so you have called for an investigation.
You know, look, we have to have trust in our elections process. It's essential to a strong, stable democracy. And so when you hear words like targeting certain voters, investing and adding to a particular column, that doesn't matter what party it is, that triggers Florida law, which under Florida law, you cannot directly or indirectly give anything of value to persuade or entice a vote. Mm-hmm. And so as Attorney General, and I believe any official charged with enforcing elections law, we have to be clear about what we're doing, which is why when I asked for further investigation, I attached all the relevant law, even opinions that describe if you target even particular voters that may be predisposed to vote a particular way, that may be illegal. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Americans can judge for themselves. They need to know that those that are in charge of the elections investigations are on it. I am hopeful that the FBI also takes notice. I directed them also to consider federal law. Americans need to know that no stone will be left unturned and investigations will proceed so that they can trust in these elections. I have heard some people suggest that Michael Bloomberg is just simply trying to buy votes down in Florida. But there's no guarantee that these people would vote for any particular candidate.
Yeah. In fact, there's not just no guarantee that they would vote for any particular candidate. There's no way to in any way guess which candidate they would vote for. And the idea that the American people, have to decide, she's giving away the game, right? This is really just like, oh, I'm trying to add my 2 cents to the idea that if Trump loses in Florida, that it's illegitimate. And therefore, he should be named president. That's all that's going on here. And Fox is really, really doing their job here by adding to this notion that this is going to be a fraudulent election.
Do we know if they're targeting people who are predisposed to vote Democrat?
I mean, it's not inconceivable to me that ex-convicts could be predisposed to vote for Democrats, but
it's Florida though.
Yeah, I saw some numbers regarding that specifically, and it's not as like clear cut as you might think if they were just.
Well, I don't even have a guess as to whether that is. I'm saying like that entire cohort could be, but it's absurd to then say you're actually giving them something of value. All you're doing is you're allowing them to vote. This is not fungible. Right? You're giving them money or something to value. What you're doing is you're just allowing them to vote. Period. If there was, let's say there was some type of stipulation, like for instance, you have registration drives, right? Where people go and they help people register to vote. Now, is that something of value? Having a service where somebody comes to you and helps you register in your homes, or if there is a voter ID law and somebody and the ACLU comes out and says, we're going to take you we're going to drive you to the DMV so you can get an ID. Is that something of value? I mean, yes, it is, right? Like I pay for, if I take a taxi, I pay for it. If someone drives you to the polls, is that something of value? Well, yeah, it is. I mean, it would cost me money. I mean, so it's an absurd calculation because they're not getting money. What they're doing is they're getting essentially their specific fees and paid. Yeah. And
yeah,
so
I guess you could say that maybe via some stretch of the imagination, if you think they were definitely going to pay those fees themselves and now they don't have to, then they're getting money from it. But we know that that's not true.
Well, but it's the same. It's the same as I'm going to drive you to the polls.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's a bit of a stretch. I do like it though, like the idea that these Fox News people could be coming via some ass backwards mode of reasoning to realize that it's bad to let billionaires have to switch power, right? Like confiscatory tax policy to own the libs.
Yeah, that would be great, but that's not happening because they've been demonizing Soros for ages, and it has not changed their opinion as to whether we should have billionaires. Is
worth it, I guess. Still,
yeah, it would be nice. I got no problem with broadly speaking, people being very, very suspicious of the idea that billionaires exist. Here's Greg Gutfeld, saying that felons, once you commit a crime, you should not be allowed to vote. You should lose all of your rights as a citizen forever. Remember, these are specifically in terms of Florida, we're talking about people who've already served term. Now, there's also a very good argument that you should still be able to vote, even if you've committed a crime and you're in prison serving in that regard. But here's Greg Gutfeld says, yeah.
Seems to be moving ahead in Florida.
Well, I'm not going to address that because I have nothing to say about it. I'm not prepared for that point. But I will say this, looking down at my notes. How long is it before the word felon? An offensive word. So since we're talking about voting, maybe we just call them undocumented voters, right? Because that's the way we're going. I think to your point, Kennedy, is this really a good investment? A guy that knocks off a liquor store, is he the type of dependable citizen who knows the day to vote, right? He might tell you to vote, Dana. Dana, go vote, and then he'll break into your apartment and steal all of your dog toys. So I don't know if a felon is actually going to be the type of person who I say 1,000.
First of all, the toys are not mine. They are Jasper's. And secondly, I think there are some people that they want to turn their life around.
Dana, give me some names of felons that you know that are voting.
Rick?
That are not in this building.
That are not. Well, I mean, that's a long list. I'll get
true.
you the other ones.
I mean,
I don't know anybody. I don't know anything about who these
The
felons
National
are.
News does.
Does anybody know?
I will tell you this.
You
When
don't
hang out in those circles, Godfather.
When you're in prison and you're fighting for your rights, you tend to educate yourself and you talk a lot about the system and politics with other people, especially some of these nonprofit groups like the Bail Project, who really try and
I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Is it Desmond Meade, who's down in...
Yeah, I mean, there it is. I mean, Gutfield really just believes that, I guess, I don't know. I mean, Greg Gutfield wrote for Maxim magazine. I would put the interest in voting from those people, I would question their desire to vote at any time they're caring about society. I don't know how you could have written for that thing.
I would also just point out like the size of our incarcerated population in this country, and that maybe there may be some perverse incentives that are adding to that, and disenfranchising people as a function of locking them up might be one of those perverse incentives that has been acted on in this country for the last like 30, 40 years.
Without a doubt. I would say that is without a doubt. For how many years? Because I think actually that has been that has been
since slavery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is, I would say, a foundational purpose of the prison industrial complex and its growth ever since the end of slavery and the very incomplete failure of Reconstruction.
Take some people off the board.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, people should remember we did not completely rid ourselves of slavery after the Civil War. We narrowed when slavery was legal in this country. And if you look at the, I think is it the 13th Amendment?
Got a big asterisk.
Slavery is illegal unless somebody's in prison.
Yep. And then they made, oh my God, a bunch of new laws designed specifically to put Black people in prison.
Wait, do you have an ounce of pot on you? Do you have a gram of pot on you? You're boom. I mean, that's the way that's the way that rolls. It's, that's.
Yeah. I will say props to Kennedy. Libertarians, as we know, are bad, but they are good on a few different issues. And one of them is the prison system.
Well, even Dana Perino, who is, I don't know that I would call her a libertarian, is like, that may be a little bit extreme. But he's sitting there going like, you're going to give 30,000 people the ability to vote? You probably, well, how many are you going to get, 1,000? Well, I would like to remind you that the election in 2000 was supposedly George Bush's went in George Bush's favor by, I think, under 700 votes. So, and incidentally, much of where we are today as a trajectory, I think, is a function of that vote or not vote.
It's a function of a lot of things, including that. Can I ask you one question, Sam?
Yeah.
Maybe this is too personal, but as a Gen Xer, how does it make you feel that the sexy lady from MTV is now like a prominent libertarian?
Who's that?
Kennedy.
Kennedy? I was early Gen X, so she was not, MTV was just not what it was for me for I didn't see it really as a kid. I didn't see it until I didn't have cable in college. So I just didn't,
Yeah, I don't remember Kennedy. Was she like before or after like the Carson Daly TRL
I knew like
years?
duh.
She was before our time, but after Sam's time.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. I thought you were the right age for this question to be funny, but you're once again too old.
Too old for that. Sorry, folks. I was supposed to go on her show, The Independents, at one point. And then what happens is every time they would book me on Fox, what happens is, and this happens at MSNBC too, I think. I imagine it happens at all the cable things. You get booked on a show by the show, and they run it up the flagpole, and they just let central booking on the channel know so that they don't have like, oh, Sam Seder's on 4 times tonight or something. But that's also where they keep the essentially the blacklist. And Hannity had put me on that list, I'm quite sure. So there were multiple times over the years where I would get booked on a Fox show, and then I would get a call back like, hey, it's not going to work out. And usually, like if you get bumped, they say, are you available 3 days from now? Or in this instance, that never happened, and they would never call again. It was always a different show that would call. So I wasn't allowed on Fox for that. So it's unfortunate. I would have liked to have gone on that show, not because of her MTV work, but because of the libertarianism is always fun.